What's good, traders? What's good, YouTube? So people have been asking me about the differences between a breaker block and a mitigation block. So I'm here to differentiate it for you by drawing this diagram. So I'll be drawing this diagram to make it plain for you guys to understand how these things are being portrayed on the chart. So this is a breaker here, like the way I explained it on our previous video. So this is a breaker. We have series of higher high and higher lows. So now we have a break of the market structure, a market coming back to it to rally the opposite direction. So now we have what we call a breaker block right here. So this is where our breaker is. Like I said, it was once an order block, but market did not respect it, and now markets had to go past through it, then coming back tapped into it and went the opposite direction. So this is a breaker. For a mitigation block is quite similar to this, as I also have that thinking of when I see a breaker, I will always say it's a breaker. When I see a mitigation block, I tend to say it's also a breaker. So now this is a mitigation block. Let me draw it here. This is on a bearish move. So this is a mitigation block. We have series of higher highs and higher lows. So we have series of higher highs and higher lows, and price coming down, going up, and what we see is a failure swing, right? This is a failure swing because the market did not create another higher high. So markets rallied down, and you see the market taps into this, what we normally call breaker, right? And goes the opposite direction. So the difference that we can find here is that markets rallied to the bearish side, but prior to the bearish move, we can see that the last high was actually higher than the previous one. So this is just a break of the market structure. That's why we call it a breaker, because the last high prior to that breaker, markets did not fail to create a high that was higher than the previous high. So for this one now, where we can find our mitigation block here is this exact spot. This is our mitigation block. So this is our mitigation block. Why is it our mitigation block? Our mitigation block because the price did not create a high that was higher than the previous high prior to that block. So markets needs the people that went for a buy here, market need to mitigate it here. So that is why we call it a mitigation block. And this is a bearish move. So you can see the differences are not really that far. You can also call them breakers when you see them, because it's just a name. So, and mitigation blocks are not really that much on the charts like breakers, because you can see that price rally up, taking out the previous high, and this is much more powerful. Like, not saying much more powerful, but it is not as rare as your mitigation block. Now this is on a bearish move. Now let's go to our bullish move. Now for a bullish move, so for a bullish move, we have this. We have series of lower highs and lower lows, and you see that market rally to the upside, taps into it, and yeah. So now where we have our breaker is right on this spot. So this is where we have our breaker. And this is where we have what our mitigation blocks. So this is our mitigation block. So you can find mitigation block in just one swing. So this breaker, prior to this breaker, we see that there was a low that was actually lower than the previous low. That's why we call it a lower low. So there was a lower low prior to the breaker. Now, and this is on a bullish move. So for mitigation blocks, we can see that we have a low that was higher than the previous low. So this is what this is, a lower low, because it was lower than this low, and we have a higher low. We have a higher low here. This is a lower low, this is higher low, this is higher high, this is higher low, this is higher high. So prior to this mitigation block, we can see that there was a higher low, but prior to this breaker blocks, there was a lower low, and this is for a bullish move. So I hope this is clear to you, and you can see that this is for a swing to the downside, and this is a swing to the upside. You can see that you can also find a breaker where there is a mitigation, or you can find a mitigation block where there is a breaker, like this. Because I moved this because I just want to show you that you can find a breaker. Okay, so this is a breaker block, and market rallied down, created what? A mitigation block. Why is it a mitigation block? Because prior to this block that we can normally call our breaker block, there is a lower high. So that is that. So let's hop onto our chart and search for this mitigation blocks. So for a bullish move, we need a higher low before a mitigation block, right? So here we can find that there is a mitigation block here. Why is there a mitigation block here on a lower time frame? I'm not going to move it to a lower time frame so that it does not move us to the extreme. So we're going to stick to this time frame. So I hope you understand that there is a lower low and there is a higher low right here. So you can see that that block after the lower low and the higher low, that block is what is called our mitigation block. You can see that price actually tapped into it first time, tapped into it again. So let's look for more mitigation blocks. Okay, so we can see this as our mitigation block because price tapped into, because this is a block, and what can we see prior to the block? You can see that there was a low and there was a higher low. Price comes up here and created a higher low, rally to the upside, then taps into it. What we can see is a mitigation block. Price mitigated it. Now bear in mind that other blocks are not being mitigated, they are just tapped into. So other blocks, people use that word a lot. Well, I also use it too. So but these are where we can see mitigation blocks, and price has to come and mitigate them. So let's look for more mitigation block, Okay, here we can see that mitigation block is right on the corner here. This is normally a breaker to a layman. So but why we call it a mitigation block is simply what I've said before, and we have a low, and we have a higher low. Okay, so let me delete this. We have a we have a low, we have a higher low, and prior to that, um that breaker, or prior to the mitigation block, there was a higher low right here. So that's why we call it a mitigation block. Price taps into it and rally to the upside. We have what? A mitigation block. And there is another one here, if you can see it. Okay, moving on, we can see that this is a what? A low right here, like I've said before, and this is a low right here. Okay, so this is a low right here. So let's take this one out. Now after this low right here, we have what? A higher low right here. This low, then we have a higher low right here, and we can see that there was an order block that was failed to be respected. This order block was not respected, so it becomes what? A mitigation block, and price needs to mitigate that. So now we take it from the end and we take it down. So we have what? A mitigation block. So we have a low, we have a higher low, and we have a mitigation block. So this is a mitigation block. And moving on, let's look for more. Let's find more mitigation block. This would have been a mitigation block. Yeah, it is a mitigation block, but price did not tap into it. Why? Because we have a high that is lower than the previous high. So now this is what we call a mitigation block. We need price to tap into it. This would have been a good trade if price tapped into it, but price went further to forget about this mitigation block and rally to the upside. So I created another mitigation block over here, and we have mitigation blocks. So this is also a mitigation block on a lower time frame. This is also a mitigation block. So you can see that we have a high that is lower than the previous high. Now this is to show that it is actually lower than the previous high. So what do we have here? A mitigation block. This is not a breaker, this is a mitigation block, right? So we can just enter here and take the trade to probably 1 to 2, 1 to 3. And okay, let me delete this. So we have a breaker here. We can find a breaker here, and bear in mind I need to put your breaker from the top to the bottom if you want to put your risk well. So if you want to risk it well, just put your to the bottom. So that is our breaker. This is our breaker. You can see that price taps into it multiple times. So this is our breaker. Why is it our breaker? Because this high that was created was a beautiful high that is actually higher than the previous high. So this is a breaker right here. You can find other, you can just, I normally call mine to breaker or mitigation block or anything. It's just the words. You don't have to start naming everything. The most important thing is to actually be profitable in the market. This is a breaker. Price taps into it, goes to the upside. You can call this a mitigation block because this one is actually higher than this, and you can see that there is a mitigation block here. So you just take your trade from this place. So you can put it to the end so as not to risk little. Don't put your stop loss too small. That price can just use a single pip and take you out. So that is all about mitigation blocks. You can find mitigation blocks almost not really everywhere on the charts, because to find breakers are much more easier than finding mitigation blocks. So let's move on to our next episode. All right, so traders, thank you for listening. I hope you understand what mitigation blocks and breaker blocks. I hope you understand their differences, and don't forget to like and subscribe and comment if you actually understand this video, if you understand or you want more of this explanation. It's not really hard. Mitigation and breaker blocks, you can actually call mitigation blocks breaker blocks. Nobody will actually sue you for that. So this is another mitigation block right here. This is another mitigation block right here, because why? This high is lower than this, and price rally to the upside and gives you a good reaction. So all right, peace and take care.